Welcome back to Pack Talk Podcast, episode number 78. And before we get into this, I just want to talk real quick. Thank you to the listener. Thank you for your support, and we appreciate you guys. And as always, if you have any feedback or if you have things that you want us to talk about or want us to discuss on the podcast, please send those to us or leave us a review, rate us and review us so we can see those comments. We do try to pay attention to all the comments. In today's podcast, we're going to be going through some Q&A questions that we've gotten in the comments on our YouTube and other social media platforms. So we do try to stay in touch with those. We don't typically respond to all comments just because there's too many to respond to at this point. But we do try to do Q&As like this every once in a while so we can kind of touch base. And we'll generally look for pretty common reoccurring questions, and then we'll tackle those in a Q&A like we're going to do today. All right, so we're going to dig right into it. So the first question is someone's asking, hey, do I need to be with my puppy outside when taking them potty, or can I leave my puppy in the yard? And we did do a podcast on potty training. That's episode number 2, so you can go back and refer to that if you want to. But when you're taking your puppy potty, I do recommend going out there with them. That way you can supervise them. You can actually verify that they've actually gone potty. You can show them where you want them to go potty in your yard. Once you get through the potty training phase and they're done, and then also once you have off-leash work done where you have a good, reliable recall, then in that case you can let them out in the yard by themselves if you want to. That'll be up to you. It'll be up to you if you decide to get like a doggy door set up or just open the door for your dog or leave the door open or whatever. Your dog's safety should be priority. You know what I'm saying? So if there's a safety issue, you might not want to do that. But again, that'll be up to you. But my requirements for that are potty training's got to be done and have to have a solid come command or recall. And then I have to have my off-leash training done. Okay. So speaking of getting all that done, if you refer to episode number 27 and 28, 28 is going to give you just basically the step-by-step process that we follow to training. We also have a video on our YouTube channel. It's a live video where I have a whiteboard and I step through every single step of training. But episode 27 is kind of the background to that, where it explains canine learning theory, how dogs actually learn. So you could also refer back to those if you're wondering how to get those things done. But the short answer to the question, do you need to be with your puppy outside when taking them potty? I would recommend being outside with them. I would recommend having them on a leash. All right. Okay, going to the next question. Someone's asking, I have just started training my 11-month-old Doberman. She's not very sharp with responses. Any tips? So good question. She's 11-month-old, so it's about almost a year old. Not very sharp with responses, and that could be for a variety of reasons. Some dogs are just genetically slower than other dogs, but the dog may not really understand what's expected of her. You know what I'm saying? She may not really understand where she should be going, because in the question it's saying that she is not very sharp with responses. To me, that's telling me maybe she doesn't know where she's supposed to be going, or maybe she's not motivated enough to get to those positions. So again, I'm going to refer back to episode 28 of the podcast and the live video on YouTube where we step through all the training steps. But what I would do in this case, if a dog is not sharp with responses, I would go back to my engagement work. I would go back to heavy use of reward events in my training to increase the dog's motivation and desire to want to be in different positions, and then their responses should become faster. Now, the amount of time that you spend in those steps of training is going to depend on you and your dog. Obviously, repetitions are your best friend because you're classically conditioning your dog's responses to certain situations and certain commands, right? But as soon as you get nice, quick responses, I would increase my reinforcement schedule probably to an intermediate or interval reinforcement schedule, and then start to progress through the rest of the training progression, smoothly, not quickly, smoothly, to make sure that we maintain the sharpness of those responses as desired. And again, you can get more details on that in podcast episode number 28. And also on our YouTube channel, we've got videos on reward events. We've got videos on engagement. So those are going to be the most critical piece. And just real quick to step through how you would do that. Let's say you want your dog to, come to your left side and sit, for example. You're basically at first going to lure them there and then mark with the word yes and then take off into a reward event, which is a rewarding interaction between the owner and the dog, right? So that makes both like that and enjoy the experience. And you're going to do that repetitiously. And every time you do it, you're going to change up your reward event. So you're not going to do the same reward event every single time. Sometimes you're going to run forward with your dog. Sometimes you're going to run sideways. Sometimes you're going to run backwards, right? And if you're lost in the sauce on this discussion, go to our YouTube channel, go to the reward event video, and you'll see an example of what I'm talking about, okay? But then once that becomes solidified, then you're basically going to reduce the amount of rewards you're doing, reduce the amount of reward events that you're doing. Your dog should maintain the same response and the sharpness of the response. If they're not maintaining it, you might not have done enough repetitions, so you need to go back and do more repetitions, okay?
Like we say around here, take your time.
Take your time.
Take your time with it. Do your reps, take your time.
That's true. So with that being said, take your time and definitely don't rush it and have a good time. Mm-hmm. Take your time, have a good time.
Make it enjoyable for you and your dog, right. Take your time, don't stress.
I'd be curious if any listener knows the context of take your time.
Dane the Great.
Take your time.
If you don't know him, Dane the Great on Instagram.
You need to know him. All right, next question. Someone's asking, I taught my dog not to pull on the leash, but I want to teach her to pull when I'm on the skateboard. Is that possible, or will I confuse her? And that's a really good question. So in general, what I do in these types of situations is I would use a harness, and basically I allow my dog to pull on the leash in the harness only, because I would use the harness for special situations like being on the skateboard or doing some kind of dog sport or something like that, right? But if I'm doing my normal everyday stuff, I would have the leash on the collar on the dog's neck, which could be like a fur saver training collar, which is what we use, right? So that's what I would do. I would just get a harness, put the harness on your dog. There should be no issue with your dog starting to pull on that. And that's what I do to make a clear distinction to the dog that if you feel tension on the harness, it's okay to pull. If you feel tension on the neck, it's not okay to pull. So that's kind of my 2 cents for that situation. All right. Next question. I have a question is what the person's saying. I have a question.
Right. Well, we're here to answer.
Right. How do you stop a dog from jumping over a fence? Now, this one can be very tricky. And we'll kind of go into some detail on this one. So there might be a couple things going on. If a dog's jumping a fence and it's already done it repetitiously, now we have a conditioned response to when that dog wants to. It just jumps over the fence. So now we're building a solidified habit of behavior of jumping over the fence. So this could be a big problem to try and resolve. And I've had to break many fence jumpers. You know what I'm saying? I've had to untrain them to jump fences and respect the boundary. So the first thing I'm going to do is go through our entire training progression from start to finish. Basically, I'm going from start up until I do off-leash work and probably some distraction work before I start tackling the fence problem. Now, you might say, that takes 4 weeks, that takes 5 weeks, whatever. I don't have 4 or 5 weeks to wait for my dog to stop jumping a fence. Well, then my answer to that is now it's your job to manage your dog, which means you're not going to allow them to jump over the fence, which means you're going to have to keep them on a leash until you get to that point in training. So again, I'm going to refer back to episode number 28 on our podcast and our YouTube channel, the video on training your dog, how to train your dog, going through all the steps there from engagement to building the muscle memory for obedience work to implementing accountability to doing off-leash work to doing distraction work, and then you could tackle what I'm about to discuss next, right? So once we have all that established and we've done all that legwork, it means our dog understands boundaries. It means our dog understands obedience. It means our dog understands remote collar conditioning. It means it's been proofed in distraction scenarios. So now I let my dog out in the yard And if they try to go to the fence, I'm going to say, come, right? And if they don't come, I'm going to say no, and I'm going to implement accountability, probably through a remote collar. And I'm going to do that repetitiously until my dog stops trying to jump the fence. So you're going to have to monitor your dog once you get to that point first, and then once you're good to go with the monitoring of your dog, then you can like let them out in your yard if you want to, and just let them do their thing out there.
Probably no more free roaming. Maybe when you're in the house, if they're jumping the fence when you're in the house, you got them in the backyard. You know?
Yeah, it's going to depend. It's going to
definitely set some boundaries there.
Set up your boundaries, set up management. Remember, your dog will only do what you allow your dog to do. So if you allow your dog to jump the fence, it will keep jumping the fence.
Yeah.
But that means you have to take action today to meet your goals, which means you're going to have to start today taking your dogs out to the yard on a leash, right? So they can't jump over the fence, because whatever they keep practicing, they're going to keep doing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. All right, next question. This is a good one. We had someone mention on one of our videos on some social media platform, using treats to train dogs is a tamed ideology on a domestic animal. LOL. Laughy face. That was an emoji. Laughy emoji.
Yeah.
Go back to school. LOL. So I guess this person is ragging on us for using rewards to train our dogs. And so real quick to address that, in the dog training world, you got people that are on the extreme of either side of the coin. And one side of the coin is no rewards at all. That's what I would say is extreme. No rewarding at all. The other side of the coin is only, the extreme side is only rewards, right? No type of accountability or corrections. And so then you have what we call balanced dog trainers that are in the middle of those two extremes. And the balanced dog trainers are trying to use the best of both worlds. They're using rewards and they're using some form of accountability. Mm-hmm. So what this guy's saying, or girl, whoever it is saying that using treats is basically bad, right? Don't do that. So they're on the extreme side of the coin that is not using any type of food rewards or treats or anything like that. With that being said, what is the training method when you're not using rewards? So I'm not going to go into a huge rabbit hole about how dogs learn in canine learning theory. If you want to go down that rabbit hole with me, you can go over to episode 27 of the podcast and I'll deep dive it with you. Mm-hmm. But real quick here, basically there's 4 quadrants to operant conditioning. I'm trying not to go down the rabbit hole. So basically you can use rewards, right? Or you can use accountability, or you can blend some form of the two, right? So if you're not using rewards, you're basically having to use what we call leash pressure to train the dog, right? So that's or some type of pressure, some type of aversion. And that could be, pulling on the leash, pushing the dog's butt down. Once they sit, you release the leash, you pet them, right? The dog doesn't care about the petting. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
People will talk in a nice voice to the dog. Mm-hmm. They'll pet the dog doesn't care about that.
Right.
Not as much as like a real reward. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then they're basically just going to repetitiously do that, putting a lot of pressure on the dog's neck, pushing their butt down with their hand until the dog will reliably sit, for example. Another way people do it is, just popping the dog with the leash if it's not doing what they think it should be doing, right? This is if you're doing just straight leash work, straight leash pressure. The other way that these type of extreme trainers, I hesitate to call them trainers, but extreme individuals will train is they'll use a remote collar. They'll put it on day 1 of the dog, and they'll turn on some form of stimulation, and then they'll touch the dog. They'll push its butt down, whatever. And as soon as the dog's butt is in a sit position, they'll release the stimulation, and, they'll go from there. So we're talking about a lot of pressure, a lot of aversive pressure on the dog, which is not really going to be enjoyable for the dog. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They can learn that way. At least some dogs. Some dogs will fight you if you try to teach them that way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But some dogs can learn that way. Other dogs not going to be good to go learning that way. They're not going to be able to learn that way. Mm-hmm. So that's that extreme. The other extreme, where it's rewards only, no form of accountability, again, can work for some dogs, but other dogs will not work for, right? And what the people in this extreme try to do is just try to reward the dog's good behavior or the behavior they want, usually with some type of treat or petting or talking to them nicely, whatever. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, it can work for some dogs, and then you're using treats a lot all the time. You know what I'm saying? But it's not going to work for every dog. So the balanced method is, at least a proper balanced method, is going to start with rewards-based training, where we're basically teaching the dog through rewards. Now, the other part about this is management. So you want to manage your dog to not do things they shouldn't be doing. So, you know, hopping over a fence, for example, how do you manage that whenever you're teaching your dog? You keep them on a leash. They can only go as far as the leash goes, right? They can't, unless they pull it out of your hand, they can't get over to whatever they're not supposed to be getting in. So you keep the leash on your dog, and you guide your dog with the leash, and then you're rewarding them and building up their behaviors by luring them into positions or luring them into certain things you want them to do, and you reward them. Or what we call free shaping, they happen to do something that you want, and you just reward them for doing that anyway. That's the first step. The next step is basically reducing the amount of rewards while maintaining that level of training. So you're going to be blending. This is where you blend the two sides together, where you're reducing the rewards. You're also implementing some form of accountability, which could be like a leash tug. Now, remember, the people on the extreme side of no treats, they'll be tugging the leash all the time, but they've never done any type of real rewarding or relationship building with the dog. So in the balance system, where we're reducing the rewards and we're implementing accountability or the leash tug, now we're blending the two worlds together. And it's in my opinion, it's fairer for the dog because they understand what they're supposed to be doing. And a lot of times after we implement correction, we'll still reward them anyway to teach them that, hey, the correction is not a negative thing. Just you get the correction, you're supposed to sit. So then you sit, then you get the reward, then you're good to go, right?
Yeah.
And then it progresses on to where you don't use rewards all the time. You use them sometimes. So that's what we call a random reward schedule. This is like what we do to maintain the training.
Right.
And you'll decide if you want to use food rewards or physical contact rewards. And through most dogs are going to hold food in a higher value state than physical contact. Not all the time, but most of the time. So what we'll do is classically condition the physical contact to be the same value of reward as the food. And again, I'm trying not to go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So anyway, then we go through that stage of training. And once we're at maintenance, then we're just using food rewards as you want to, using physical contact rewards as you want to. You're also managing your dog as you need to, but you have full accountability of the dog. So to me, that's a very fair process for the dog. It speaks to them in a very clear way. And again, if you want to go down the rabbit hole with me on that, you can go to episode 27. You can listen to my lecture basically on canine learning theory and get into all the details on that stuff. And then you can go to episode 28 and you can listen to our exact process to training a dog. But I'm not a big fan of trainers on either side of the extreme, the ones that don't use any rewards at all or the ones that only use rewards. And I think that I'm more qualified than most to talk about this because when I first got into dog training, I was in the extreme side, no rewards.
Right.
That was where I was at.
Yeah.
That's where I learned originally. And my personal dog didn't take too well to that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that was why I went in search of other methods because my own dog was not enjoying the training. And, is one of those dogs that, you need to be balanced with.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's how I got to where I am today, where I'm using balanced methods. So, I understand what this trainer is doing, it just sucks that they're kind of closed-minded to learning or enhancing their understanding of canine learning theory. You know what I'm saying? And it kind of sucks too, the dogs that they are working with, if they are working with dogs that their dogs are trained in a less than desirable or suboptimal way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we did do a podcast I did want to mention real quick, selecting a dog trainer. So if you're listening to this and you're trying to figure out a trainer to work with, you can go to our podcast episode number 27, not 27, episode 37. And episode 37, selecting a dog trainer, considerations for selecting a dog trainer. And we go through specific questions you should be asking, certain things you should be doing. And the reason why we do that is we had a situation where a client had trusted another trainer, and then the trainer ended up causing damage to their dog, causing damage to them, emotionally, psychologically, all that kind of stuff. They were on the extreme side of using no treats or no rewards, you know what I'm saying? So very important to understand what to be looking for, what some considerations might be when you're selecting a trainer, whether it be like a private lesson trainer that comes to your house or whether it be like a board and train, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Those kind of things. So again, hopefully that makes sense to most people. But I think that a balanced, rewards-based training system is the best way to train a dog. Mm-hmm. And you're going to fluctuate between both sides of the coin when you're using your balanced training system, but it produces the most fair training progression that's fair for the dog, fair for you. You can have a good time. Your dog can have a good time. You know what I'm saying? Another reason why I left that extreme side of no rewards is because as a human, it was hard for me to keep training dogs like that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of dogs were not enjoying it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It was getting the training done. Yeah. Right? But a lot of dogs were not enjoying that style of training.
Tough to get people out of the mindset to like this dude, where they see it as like when you train a dog, it can't be a fun thing. Mm-hmm. It's got to be, I don't know if you would use the word punishment, but like you have to be strict, mm-hmm. You got to be hardcore on them, yeah. They can't have fun while they're learning,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, you've definitely lived both sides of the coin, like you've said. And Chad shared a story too, of learning to be a dog trainer, his path to becoming where he is now. I know we're plugging a lot of episodes today, but episode 67. If you want to hear Chad's full story on becoming a dog trainer, episode 67, he dives into the ins and outs of how he got to where we are today with Canine Revolution.
So good to go. All right, and then again, if there's someone out there that would like to debate that, sure, good to go. Let me know. We'll get on the.
We'll do a live stream.
We'll get on the podcast. We'll debate both sides of the coin. But with the understanding, if that ever did happen, if someone ever wanted to have that conversation, I'd definitely have it. But with the understanding of, there's no hatred, there's no hard feelings. We're just trying to articulate our sides, our perspectives, and then hopefully come to a mutual understanding. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But again, because I've lived both worlds, I kind of know. It's just, I just know that the balanced rewards base is better.
Yeah. And you can tell the difference too. Yeah. At least from what I see, how we do things, mm-hmm. you can tell that, the dogs are having a good time while they're learning what behaviors we're expecting of them, mm-hmm. or like we're trying to teach them, or if they're stuck in a certain mindset, like they're super scared, super fearful dog, or maybe a dog that doesn't like people, doesn't like other dogs, reactive. Yeah. The balanced system, instinctually will teach them, like the different ways that they can change their mindset about how to behave in the world. You know what I'm saying? So
the key to the balanced system too is when you're building the behaviors up, when you're training, when you're working through your progression, implementing proper management of the dog, enough structure to help you meet your goals as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because once you meet your goals, once you complete the training progression, then there's a lot more freedom in you and the dog's relationship and day-to-day life. But up until that point, there is needed heavier management, heavier structure mm-hmm. to get to the freedom piece, right? Yeah. Discipline equals freedom. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh. I know, Jocko.
All right. All right, next question.
She's been waiting for us to do a Q&A.
Oh, has she?
She
keeps commenting.
It's been a while. I think we got this comment back in March, but I had seen her. She's asking the same question on a couple different of our posts. So we finally got your question.
All right, Marquis Marquet.
Is
that how you say it?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Her question or his question is question for your next Q&A. How do I get my puppy to stop biting my fingers when taking a treat? And this is a good question. I was actually just talking to
this. Tell your fingers up.
I was just discussing this with one of our team members the other day.
Right.
because we're training a dog right now that was a little bit bitey with their reward taking, right? And that happens. And some dogs, you know, they're so into it, they're having a hard time regulate it. So
especially the puppies.
The puppies, yeah. So there's a couple different tactics I take with this scenario. First of all, we basically have to teach the puppy how to bite softly or how to take softly, right? Mm-hmm. And so what that means is at the very base level, we're going to have to withhold that reward until we get some type of soft bite or soft mouthing on the lure or the hand, wherever the treat is coming from. And that can be hard to do because basically you're going to have to keep that reward in your hand until you feel the puppy soften up a little bit, right? And so that means you're going to have to endure the puppy scratching, biting at your hand until that happens if we're going with a rewards-based balanced dog training system, right? Mm-hmm. So what I like to do for this is get a glove off of Amazon that is like a knife-proof glove. You know what I'm talking about? Like a kitchen glove. Right. It's like this knife-proof material. And so you won't even you'll feel the pressure of the teeth, but you won't feel the teeth themselves like ripping your skin open. Mm-hmm. So I put that glove on my hand that I'm using for lures. I put my lure in the hand, and I'm feeling the pressure of that dog, trying to get that piece of food out of my hand. And all I'm looking for is a split second of a easier bite on my hand. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that split second, I immediately release my hand open so the puppy can have the food out of my hand.
It's a lot about timing.
Timing, exactly. And what I do is I'll say the word good as soon as I feel that softened pressure, and then I'll open up my hand. And at first, it's really hard to get going because of the timing piece and because you're trying to feel that puppy. And some puppies will increase, like if they're trying to bite it and they can't get it, they'll get frustrated, so they'll increase their pressure, right? But at some point, they will decrease, and as soon as you feel that decrease, good, open your hand.
Right.
And then repetition of that, the puppy will bite softer because I've done this with a ton of dogs. This is my preferred method of doing it.
Yeah. I've seen you out there with the glove before.
Yeah. And it just takes time and patience to get that dog to bite softer and bite softer. You know what I'm saying? So that's one method. The other method is, hold your hand as flat open as possible and put the treat or the piece of food you're using right between your index and middle finger. And the reason why you want your hand flat, if you're watching the video on YouTube, I'm trying to show you my flat hand. You see it?
Yep.
See it?
Mm-hmm. Yep, we see it. We see the angles.
If you're watching this on YouTube, I've got my flat hand out. If you're listening, hold your hand as flat out as possible, all your fingers extended. You put the piece of food between your index and middle finger right down at the, what do you call that? The crotch.
Right.
The crotch of the finger.
The web.
The web of your finger, right?
Yeah.
And you just tuck it in there. And the reason why this helps is because your puppy's trying to bite, and because your hand's flat, it's not really going to make a lot of contact with you because their nose is going to get in the way. They'll be bumping you, right, with their nose. They're trying to get this piece of food, and then you can open up your fingers and let them have the food, right, at a certain point. Again, you're looking for decreased pressure. But because your hand's flat, it's super hard for them to actually tear your skin or cause pain from their teeth because their teeth are super sharp and they hurt. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So that's another method. And then a last method could be you don't feed your puppy directly from your hand at first. You do what we call a remote reward, which means you say some verbal marker, and mine is find. If I say find, that means that I've put something out there, right? Mm-hmm. If I have the ball, it's fetch, right? So if I say, and I think we did a video where I toss a ball, and then I say fetch, and then the dog can go get the ball. That's my word when I have a ball. Mm-hmm. But if it's food, it's find, right? So I'd have the food in my hand. Puppy does something that I want. I say find, and then I drop the food or I toss it just a couple feet away from me, allowing my puppy to go get it, right? So you could use whatever word you want to, but that's another concept there. The whole concept of that is getting the puppy used to taking rewards. And then after you do some of that, you could try to feed from your hand and see how their intensity is on your hand. And if it's still intense, you're going to have to go to preferably the glove method. That just seems like the best method to me because it really just alleviates any pain on your part and allows you to feel that pressure very, very finely tuned when you're working with your dog.
Well, this just crossed my mind. Would you, if you fed your puppies like meal out of your hand, would that help at all?
Probably not.
Probably
it's
not.
probably a highly food motivated dog.
Because they're just thinking
trying to look
food,
at the profile
food,
picture.
Food,
it looks
food.
like it's just a lady. I didn't see the dog. Well, the dog is there.
Yeah, it's like a pity or something.
Oh yeah,
that.
pity.
Looks like a little pity.
Yeah, pity.
Yeah.
So so Marquet. That's what I would recommend for that situation. And it could be any dog, even if it's an adult dog and they're doing that, I'll do the same thing. The glove method is my preferred method for that. It's worked a bunch of times for me.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Good to go.
All right. Next question. Adopted my dog and is very reactive to other dogs. How can we fix that? So the underlying cause here is, or the underlying scenario is your dog just doesn't care about you enough, right? So if your dog cared about paying attention to you, they pay more attention to you than other distractions. And also there's some kind of conditioned response to other dogs. Maybe it's rooted in wanting to go over there to the other dogs and interact with them, dominate them, whatever. Maybe it's rooted in being nervous of the other dogs, so reactive to try and keep them away. It kind of depends.
Right.
But the primary focus here is turning that dog's focus more onto you instead of other dogs around you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what I'm going to recommend here is building up engagement, building up the downstay eye contact drill, building up the healing eye contact drill. And lucky for you, we just did some videos, right, on the downstay eye contact drill.
It's out.
It's out?
Yeah, I posted yesterday.
Oh, really? Both of them or just one?
Both of them. Same video.
Oh, shit.
Unlock your dog's focus on you.
All right.
With these drills, check it out on YouTube. Also, trainer Chris, fellow Canine Revolution trainer Chris Tipton, did a video on a reactive dog with one dog he had.
That's right.
And he shows an example about how to get your dog to focus on you amidst other dogs in the environment. But like Chad said, it's rooted all in engagement. So you're going to have to do engagement. You're going to have to do focus building. So everything Chad's saying, but you can look at that video too on our YouTube channel to see how he is dealing with a reactive dog like that.
Yeah.
Live action.
Yeah.
So check that out.
Go to the YouTube and listen to episode 28 of the podcast. But this is going to be talking about building up that engagement and relationship. That's the number one priority. Number two priority after that is doing the downstay eye contact drill and the healing or the walking eye contact drill.
Yeah.
The reason why those are important is because it teaches your dog that if they see some type of distraction, their first response should be to look at you instead of looking at the distraction. And this really helps because if a dog sees something and mentally they're in conflict about it, they'll just look at you. And the reason why I know this works is because I did it with my own dog. You know what I'm saying? That was human reactive. So I know it works. It's good to go with that. We've done it a bunch of times. And then if you're on the episode 28 training progression, also how to train your dog on our YouTube, once you get through distraction work, once you get to the distraction work phase of training, you'll be good to go. Because if your dog does look and maybe is looking too much or maybe reacting, you can stop that with your accountability protocols and then redirect your dog to look at you and initiate an eye contact drill. You know what I'm saying?
Guineas are going ham outside.
You can hear him?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
But also all this, like we've been saying, take your time.
Take your time.
Take your time. Don't rush it. Especially with reactive dog.
Take your time, son.
Getting that focus is like I kind of have this with my dog. She just gets excited about other dogs. I would say that's a form of reactive, right, to another dog. She gets really excited, wants to go greet them.
Yeah.
Go really hard on the engagement, and so she might be in conflict, but if I call her name, she'll pop her head, look up at me. I give her a award. We're past this other dog at that point, you know, and we're continuing on. So it takes time to get to that point.
Yeah.
You might be out in public after doing all this and you're trying to get that engagement and your dog kind of blows you off or something, you got to hold them to what you're asking of them, whether they're in a heel or what.
Yeah.
But over time, through multiple repetitions, multiple sessions, they'll start looking at you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But it's like all the puzzle pieces being put together.
Right.
Accumulation of all the hard work.
Yeah.
That's why I say take your time.
Take your time.
So
now, with that being said, like we said at the beginning, reactivity could be, like you said, your dog wanting to go over and interact with the dog.
Yeah.
So we need self-control.
Yeah.
You know, could be your dog reacting because it's nervous about other dogs being around and wants to keep them at bay or away. Right. So just some things to factor in. But again, it doesn't matter really what the root cause of the reactivity is. It matters what actions are you going to take.
Yeah.
And the engagement, the eye contact is your priorities, right? Then you're going to progress from there. Again, episode 28 is going to give you all the steps to the training progression. Okay. Next question. Someone says, I destroyed my dog's trust in collars entirely because of one of these stupid collars. I refuse to ever use one again. It's been 1.5 years and he still hates collars.
He's talking about e-collar.
I'm assuming, I'm assuming that we're talking about remote collars, e-collars, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So my initial thought when I read this is improper collar usage.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, or slapping it on day one.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Improper collar usage.
Right.
Anytime you're using a remote collar in training, there needs to be a progression. There needs to be a conditioning process. You know what I'm saying? And for the listener and for the viewer, we did a recent update on remote collars, episode 75. We talk about remote collars. We talk about some of the myths. We talk about the conditioning process. Also, our older remote collar podcast, episode 19, we actually redid it, 75, but 19 was the original one. We talk about the remote collar conditioning process. We talk about the remote collar myths. So you could listen to those if you want to deep dive down that rabbit hole. But again, reading this is like, hey, we made a bad call.
Yeah.
You know, we put the collar on improperly. We used it improperly. We didn't follow a proper training progression. And here's the deal. If you go to episode 28 of the podcast, you'll listen to it. But we do use remote collars. Right? We use them. We train every dog. We condition them to use a remote collar for that dog's safety.
Right.
And it has to be done properly. You know what I'm saying? Remote collars allow you to have the freedom you need with your dog and the freedom you want with your dog. Because you can have your dog off leash. You know what I'm saying? With that being said, it's got to be done properly. So again, going back to the considerations about selecting dog trainers, one of the questions is, you know, how are you using remote collars if they use them? And if a trainer says they're using it day one, red flag goes up.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? If a trainer is doing a 2-week training program with remote collars, red flag goes up because they're using remote collars for everything. Not good to go.
Yeah.
Not good to go.
Skipping a bunch of steps.
Right. And someone just told me the other day, if you say not good to go, I know it's not good.
That's serious, right? That's serious. Yeah.
So I'm saying that using a remote collar and training improperly, not good to go. So we won't even use a remote collar until day like 7 to 10 of a 30-day training program, because those first 7 to 10 days is engagement, relationship building, reward events, eye contact, foundational level of training.
Showing the dog what the, you know, expectations are going to be. You know.
All that foundational work has to be done properly before you can use a remote collar. If the foundational work is taking a little bit more time than 7 to 10 days, maybe it takes 15 days, and we don't start using a remote collar till the foundational work is done.
Yeah.
And all of our trainers have their progression checklist, and they know exactly when they're going to be using a remote collar depending on that dog.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So what happened to this person, unfortunately, if the dog's trust has been destroyed in collars entirely, the dog created a superstitious association with the use of the remote collar, and it sounds like it has been associated to any collar on his neck, his or her neck. You know what I'm saying?
And how hard is that? How hard is that to break?
Well, we've done it before. We've done it several times. Right. It's extremely challenging, depending on the level of the association.
Well, it sounds like for this dog, it could be intense.
Sounds like for this dog, it's going to be serious, right?
Yeah,
I've had to take dogs before that's what we're doing, because here's a story. Like one of the owners that we've worked with, we've had the honor and pleasure of working with. They had a dog that's digging through their trash, jumping on the counter, whatever. So they go on the internet. The internet tells them get a remote collar.
Slap a remote collar.
So they get a remote collar, and as soon as the dog touches the trash can, they hammer the dog with a remote collar correction. Dog immediately freaks out, runs, hides in a corner because it has no idea.
Doesn't know what the hell's going on. Yeah.
Doesn't know what the hell's going on. And so anyway, they contact us. It's a big ordeal. So we go. We're doing the training. We get through the foundational level of work. We go to where we're starting remote collar conditioning. And the dog is literally remembering that situation. So we ended up having to extend the program by several weeks so that we could do more foundational work to prepare the dog for the remote collar conditioning. We got it done, right? But we had to extend the training by a couple weeks to make sure that it was fair for the dog and done properly.
Yeah.
So the remote collar could be used properly with the dog to ensure the dog's safety. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that's just something that I just feel like a lot of people do is rush the process. That's why I keep dropping, take your timeline, because like these people are the people you're talking about. Like they have this issue, you know, they just think that slapping a remote collar on is going to solve it faster than them having to take the time to deal, you know, like introduce these concepts to the dog or to manage the dog.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So then they start running into these issues.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? To where now we have to take more time with the dog to make sure we're setting this dog up for success.
Right.
You know?
And I mean, that's part of what it comes down to, selecting the proper dog trainer, because some trainers would take that dog and then they do the same thing they do with every dog, put the remote collar on day one, start using it, and basically hammer the dog through the process, and it's just going to not help the dog. It's not going to rehabilitate the dog. You got to take your time and go through the process properly. You know what I'm saying?
But unfortunately, I was going to say, I don't even think that if you took a dog like the dog that you're talking about or the one that this person has right here, if you take them to a trainer that's putting on the remote collar on the first day or so, like, you're probably not going to be able to train the dog. I'd feel like it would just mentally shut down.
They will, for some dogs, like you said, mentally shut down, yes. But they will get the dog to comply. You know what I'm saying? But the dog will be mentally shut down.
And this could do long-term damage.
They'll do long-term damage until fixed. And if you go down that road and choose a cheaper trainer that's doing a 2-week program, you know, for example, it's just going to hurt the dog in the long run.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that do just put a remote collar on their dog, and it does end up okay.
Yeah.
And so then these people tell their friends, and then they do it with their next dog, and they do it there. It's like, number one, not good for the dog anyway. Number two, spreading bad information. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, like this person that we got this comment from, a lot of people in our comments or whatever, really, they like to rag on us because, one, they don't know what the hell we're doing. You know, like they don't understand the training process and how we operate as a company. But they like to, oh, you're slapping a collar on. Of course the dog's listening to you. You slap a collar, electronic collar, dog's going to do, this dog is terrified. This dog, blah, blah, blah. You know, they don't understand that we're doing the least 7 to 10. Or in the case like you said, hey, this dog has this going on. We're going to wait until day 15 to even introduce the remote collar. And when we are introducing it, it's not like we're starting to use it like, you know, hardcore for corrections. It's like, you still have to introduce, you know, so the dog's going to wear the collar without even using it, you know, and all that stuff. But just the people like to run their mouths in the comments about the remote collars.
We get a lot of comments about remote collars. A common comment is, will he do that without the remote collar?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Or, of course he's doing it. He's terrified.
Right. Or they're being forced to do it with the remote collar. And the answer is they will do it without the remote collar.
Yeah.
But why would you set yourself up for a potentially dangerous situation? Because even if your dog is highly trained, there's still distractions in the world. It's still a living, breathing being. So there's still going to be some level of, you know, the dog disobeying or doing something maybe it shouldn't be doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so the remote collar, again, is your safety. You know what I'm saying? It's your safety net. It's your ability to communicate with your dog at a distance, right? It's your invisible leash. So to answer the question, will he do it without a remote collar? Yes, he will. But I'm still just going to have my tools available.
Yeah.
Just like I'm still going to have my leash I'm still going to have my regular collar. I'm still going to have my dog tags or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, you're still going to have your tennis shoes on you.
Yeah.
You know, whenever you go outside, you're going to wear your flip flops or your shoes. You're going to wear something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You got your shirt on your back, you know, you're going to wear something.
Yeah.
You know, it's a weird analogy, but think about things that you have every day with you that do you need them? Do you not need them? Why do you have them?
Yeah.
Right? So, like, to me, the remote collar is just a tool, and I just have it on my dog every day.
Yeah.
Like, for me personally, I rarely have to give my dogs any type of correction for stepping outside the bounds. But if they do step outside the bounds, I'm ready because I have the remote collars on. You know what I'm saying? Every day.
And I think people think when the dog maybe does get a correction on the remote collar that it's like this horrible experience for the dog. Like, to me, it's like when it, like, or at least for my dogs, when I do have to use my remote collar, because most of the time I can just say no. You know, at this point, you know, I've done so many, you know, gone through the whole training with them, and then your day-to-day life. Over time, they just know what they're supposed to do and do not, so they know when they're teetering the line. You know, you tell them a verbal no, normally they'll snap out of it. But even then, when you do and you do have to correct them, it's like they just stop doing what they're doing and like they just keep carrying on. I think people add the empathy, you know, or like an emotional side to it that maybe the dog just, you know,
Anthropomorphism.
Yeah, they're adding emotions to it that the dog they get a correction, and it doesn't have to be anything crazy.
Right.
It can be a low stem correction. They feel it. They just stop doing what they're doing. They carry on with their day. Like, they're not second thinking about it. You know.
Well, the thing about the remote collar is you finally tune it to your dog, so you can increase or decrease the level, and you should only be using the level that is just enough to get effective communication with your dog. You don't want to over communicate. You don't want to under communicate. You know what I'm saying? But again, don't want to go down too crazy of a rabbit hole. So go to episode 75. We'll deep dive remote collars in that episode. Go to episode 19 for our original remote collar episode. Okay. Moving on to the next question. The question is, how do you start this sort of training? Heel and stay are troublesome for me with my almost 2-year-old pup. Like, I cannot help him next to me without a leash.
Yeah, I can't keep him next to me without a leash. Yeah. I think this was one of our off-leash videos in downtown Charleston when the dogs are either recalling or working with the owner off-leash, you know. Yeah. I think they're just trying to, how do I get to this
So how do you get
point?
started with this training? You're going to go to episode 28 of the podcast. You're going to listen and digest and understand all the steps to our training progression from start to finish, from engagement all the way to distraction work. You know what I'm saying? Then you can go to our YouTube. You can watch the video, how to train your dog, right? But again, take your time. So specifically, she mentions heel and stay are troublesome. So I'm just going to talk about those two very quickly. So healing is all about, number one, desensitizing your dog's opposition reflex in regards to the leash. And opposition reflex is the dog's natural desire to want to pull against the leash, right? So that you put a leash on your dog, that leash puts tension on your dog naturally wants to pull against that tension. So therefore, leash pulling, creating a leash puller, right? So how do we desensitize that? We put a little bit of tension on the leash in one direction. As soon as the dog slightly moves with the leash instead of against it, we say good, we reward them. We do that repetitiously until if we were to pull on that leash, that dog just walks with the leash instead of against it. So that's how we stop a dog from leash pulling. It's how we create a loose leash walker. Now, heel position is specifically walking next to you on your left side with the dog's head and shoulder region being right about where your left leg is. So in order to do that, we're going to basically teach the dog that position through luring and rewarding and repetition. And then we're going to implement some type of accountability once the dog understands that expectation. And once they leave heel position, we'll say no, little tug on the leash. Then once we have the remote collar done, we'll say no, we'll communicate via the remote collar, right? Yeah. So that's the quick and easy on the heel position. There's more details in episode 28 and on the YouTube channel. Now for the stay position, there's 3 main aspects of the stay you have to focus on. Number 1 is duration. Number 2 is distance. Number 3 is distraction. My friend Krista likes to say triple D. That's what that is. The triple D. The triple D. Yeah. So the first D to the stay is duration. And before we teach a stay, we will normally teach a down command, right? So we'll have the dog down. To teach duration, we're going to reward the dog at a certain interval of time. And that interval of time at first is going to be very, very short intervals of time. And then as the dog progresses and gets comfortable staying down for short intervals of time, we increase the interval of time until the dog is good to go laying down for an extended period of time with or without rewards present, right? Now, when we're doing this, we're not really moving in relation to the dog. We're just staying where we were at, okay? The second piece is the distance piece. And the distance piece is when you're stepping away from your dog, distance between the handler and the dog. When you're stepping away from your dog and your dog maintains position, you say good, you step forward, you reward them. You step away, you say good, you step forward, you reward them. You repeat that process until the dog can stay for a duration of time and with you walking at a distance away from them. At first, that's just going to be a foot, but then you could take it out to 30 feet, 60 feet, whatever, through the use of long lines, or you can do it with like a 6-foot leash, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The last piece is distraction, and that's going to be you walking around your dog, other things going on around your dog, and then taking your dog out to places where there's new environments, new things going on, and proofing that downstay in those distraction places. Now, with that being said, if your dog breaks a downstay, you're going to have to say no, give them a correction for that. At a certain point in the progression, somewhere around the distance work, you're going to start implementing some accountability. But at first, if your dog gets up, you're just going to literally just grab the leash, take them right back to where they originally laying down at, and just put them right back into a downstay, no correction given, because we're building up the expectation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, also with that, an important thing about the stay, some people think that it's really good if their dog stays for 5 seconds or 15 seconds. To me, that's like chum change.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours. That's what I'm going for. Basically, your dog's staying until you let them up. Yeah. Now, with that being said, you have to be fair to them.
Yeah.
Which means you have to meet their instinctual needs, which means you got to do your physical exercise, your mental exercise, make sure they're having enough potty breaks. You don't want to force them to stay down. If they got to poop, you know what I'm saying? Let them go poop, put them back in the downstay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So anyway, once you kind of hammer out that stay, you're going to go for the duration work where you know your dog's going to stay there as long as you need him to. That's for your dog's safety and for your state of mind. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Did I miss anything?
No.
All right.
You
So
hit
good
everything
to go on
yeah.
that one. Hopefully that helps. And again, episode 28, that's going to be the training steps to the progression. Okay. All right. Next question. Someone's asking about, but what about canine.com? What is that?
I don't know.
Canine.com with his Corsa and his barbaric ear and tail docking. How are you supposed to read the signs of the posture from your dog?
So this was a comment on, we did a video on confident dog body language. And we also have other videos about insecure dog body language or, dog body language in general. I don't know who this guy's referring to with the canine.com, and I guess he has a certain type of dog. But I guess this dog has his ears are cropped, his tail is docked. So right. He's asking, how do you read a dog with a docked tail and, docked ears?
Good question. A lot of times with cropped ears and docked tails, the dog is going to try to compensate with other signals for those, what we call handicaps. Like if a dog had a full tail, you could read where the tip was at. If the dog had a docked tail, that would be considered a handicap in the dog language world because you can't read the whole thing. Now, with that being said, a lot of times the dog will exaggerate that docked tail. So if it was going to hold its tail down, you'll see the docked tail being pushed down as far as possible, so you could imagine the rest of the tail there, right?
Yeah.
Or it might move its rear end a little bit down. So you're going to have to pick up on other body signals from your dog with those types of things going on. With that being said, cropped ears, a lot of times you can still read them pretty effectively. You know what I'm saying? If the ears are like forward, that dog is feeling dominant, confident. If the ears are pulled back, there's some kind of nervousness, submission, insecurity going on, depending on the dog, depending on the cropping, depending on the way those ears are with the crop setup. You know what I'm saying? So how are you supposed to read the signs? You're just going to have to look at the dog overall a little bit better. Understand you're going to have to pick out some other pieces of the body language of that dog. And look for exaggerations with the cropped ears and the dock tail. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, probably if it's your personal dog too, you're able to pick on.
If it's your personal dog, yeah, you'll be able to pick up on the cues. This guy's saying it's barbaric, so I doubt his own dog is cropped or docked.
Yeah.
All right, next comment. Why do you recommend the slip collar as a training collar?
Yeah, and, so this correlates with trainer Chris did a video on showing how to use a Fur Saver training collar, how to size it properly for your dog and stuff like that. I've also seen in correlation with this comment, some people are questioning why we're putting these types of training collars on puppies. Like we've had a puppy play time, like reading puppy body language when they're playing and stuff, and people are upset that we're using training collars on these dogs.
They can't be happy.
There's never something right, with some of these people. But so that correlates with where this question is coming from.
So the first part of the question, why do you recommend the slip collar? And basically the Fur Saver training collar is a slip collar. It's just a chain link one.
Right.
And the reason why we use that is because we've had dogs before, highly reactive or whatever. They want to turn around and bite the collar. If it's like a soft collar, they'll just rip right through it. The chain collar, they can't rip through. You know what I'm saying? So we can still maintain positive control of the dog through a leash and a collar. Now, why do we choose a slip collar? Because, if we're working with the dog and that dog pulls against the leash, let's say it's like starting out its training, it pulls against the leash. A lot of dogs slip flat collars, and the flat collar will slip right off the dog. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
With the slip collar, it does tighten down as the pressure is put on the collar, which will prevent the dog from slipping the collar, which again enables us to have the dog's safety in mind and maintain positive control of the dog. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Usually if a dog's doing that, they're probably insecure about something or nervous about something. And so we need to establish a relationship with them. But before that, we just want to make sure we have good positive control of the dog and ensure the dog's safety. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's why we chose the slip collar. There's a couple variations. If you got your puppy at home, you could use a slip lead, which is like a lead and collar combination. You could use the Fur Saver type training collar, which is again that chain link type style collar that is a slip collar. And then you have like your, they call it a dominant dog collar, but it's not really like specifically for dominant dogs. It's like a nylon slip collar. It's just a collar. You clip a leash to it, but it's nylon instead of chain. You could use that too.
Yeah.
Just depends on you and your preference. Again, the reason why we don't use the nylon collars is because dogs that are highly reactive will turn around, they'll bite the collar if they're frustrated or whatever. And, it could rip the collar. Then we lose positive control of the dog. And then the dog is in a dangerous position because, for whatever reason, depending on their location, they could be running around without anybody, having influence over them, not making good decisions. So anyway, that's why we use a slip collar. Flat collars, I'm not a big fan of flat collars because dogs can slip out of them very easily. I've seen it happen too many times. I just saw somebody the other day at a park and their dog just slipped a flat collar and then they're running around trying to get their dog. The dog's running off, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? So just not a good scenario, not good to maintain your dog's safety.
Yeah.
A lot of people use flat collars. They like to decorate them and all that kind of stuff. And that's cool if you like that, but I would still have a slip collar, dominant dog collar, nylon, slip collar, slip lead, Fur Saver, whatever. Right? Some kind of collar that will tighten down if needed.
It's more of a safety precaution.
For the safety issue, right? That's why I would choose that.
Probably have the flat collar on and the slip collar on if you want to.
Right.
But, have your leash clipped to the slip collar.
That's what I'm saying. And then the other thing the reason why I don't like flat collars is because I have seen at least one case myself, but I've heard of other ones where it applies so much pressure to the dog's neck. If the dog's a leash puller, it'll cause damage to the dog's trachea, right? Because there's just constant pressure right there, so not good to go.
Yeah.
The other collars people might be using, prong collars, which are fine. But, again, prong collars can come apart, actually, just based on their design. So it's not 100% foot.
What is that?
That's Lauren's Roomba.
What the hell? It just randomly turned on? The robots.
Anyway.
The robots taking over.
That's So backing it up. Another collar people might be using is like a prong collar. Prong collars are okay. They're just like less than desirable because of the design of the prong collar. They can come apart, which again puts the dog's safety in jeopardy. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, those are kind of like the main collars that I'll see. Also a martingale collar, you know what I'm talking about, which is like a flat collar with the piece that like basically will slacken the collar or tighten it.
Oh yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
Is that like a choke chain?
It's a martingale, so it's a flat collar,
right?
But it has a piece of it that will actually adjust.
Oh,
so martingales are fine, honestly.
Maybe I haven't seen that.
If you want to use a martingale, those are honestly fine because again, they will tighten down so the dog can't slip out of them, right? My main concern is the dog slipping out of a collar. Like that's not good, right? Yeah. Unless you're off leash trained, then you're good to go. Okay. Yeah. So with that being said, that's kind of the answer to that. What's the other part of this question? People are like wondering why we're using.
Oh, like why puppies are wearing them. You know, they saw that one video puppy playtime that we had, and they're, you know, why is a puppy wearing they think they're like choke collars or prong collars. They don't know exactly what the dog, like I said, you know, they don't specifically know what's going on. They're also upset that maybe a puppy or a younger dog is wearing a remote collar. You know, you know, you can't win with everyone. Also, they don't understand, you know, all the training processes and methods and everything, but I think they're just thinking,
well, puppies are still dog. They still need to be trained. They still need to go through the training process. We did do a podcast on puppies. I don't have it off the top of my head. But I will say with like younger puppies, like let's say between like when you get them at 8 weeks old until about 16 weeks old, my recommendation is that you're using like a slip lead, which is the collar and the leash combined together. Or you could use like the nylon slip collar, you know what I'm saying, with a leash. So those are my recommendations for that. And the reason why that is just because it's easier and the puppy's growing fast. The slip lead just makes it super convenient to slip over your dog's head, take him outside, bring him back in, take it off, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Catch that on episode 26.
26.
Yeah.
26, raising your puppy the right way. So with that being said, that's why I recommend the slip lead until about 16 weeks old. Then about 16 weeks old, which is about 4 months, I'll actually start the formal training progression. Everything between 8 to 16 weeks is all fundamentals, prep work for training later. First priority is potty training, right? Then I'm working on engagement. I'm going to go ahead and start muscle memory for obedience. Once we hit that 16-week mark, I'm ready to start implementing accountability and getting the accountability done, getting the remote collar work done, you know what I'm saying? And then progress from there. It can happen super fast, right?
Yeah.
Get your distraction work, socialization work done. So, again, puppies are dogs. They need to be trained, you know what I'm saying? But there are a little bit of differences between adult dogs and puppies. And 8 to 16 weeks is a little bit different than 16 weeks beyond. And with that being said, you can go back to episode 28. You can see the full training progression, listen to it. You can go to our YouTube, watch the YouTube video, How to Train Your Dog. It's a live video where I have a whiteboard and I'd step you through every training step and with more reason. And maybe we'll do another one. Yeah. Maybe we'll do a more in-depth one that is better for people, right? So that's the recommendation there. All right. So, yeah, I think that covers most of the questions. What other questions we got?
Yeah, I think that was all we had for today.
One topic I did want to discuss really quickly just came up. Another thing to take into consideration when preventing injuries in dogs is nutrition. So making sure to the best of your ability that your dog is actually intaking the nutrients from their food as much as possible. So selecting a high quality food. Also monitoring your dog's poop.
Yep. I mean,
if you got good,
you got to monitor.
If you or your dog have good log poop. It means that your body is utilizing the nutrients that you're providing to it efficiently and properly. If you have constipation or if you have mushy, soft, liquid poop, not good.
Right.
That means your body is not processing the nutrients properly.
Right.
Or maybe you're giving it bad nutrients, like donuts.
I like donuts.
Okay, every once in a while. Anyway.
Actually, your wife just gave me a coupon to Krispy Kreme, a free dozen.
That must be because she didn't want to poison herself.
She said something with a school fundraiser.
So she pushed it off on you.
I took it gladly. It's free, boys. Free dozen.
The other thing to keep in mind, too, is hydration. Very important for recovery. So monitoring your dog's urine. If it's too dark, probably not hydrated enough, right? You want it lemonade style or like on the lighter end of the scale. So anyway, some things to keep in mind with preventing injuries in dogs and yourself, right? Critical. But wrapping the podcast up, I do want to take the time to mention that the podcast is sponsored by Canine Revolution Dog Training. So if you need help training your dog, let us know, right? We have trained dogs from all over the United States, so you can reach out to us from anywhere. We'd be more than happy to help. We are local to South Carolina, so we're in the South Carolina Low Country if you're in that area. Also, Canine Revolution apparel, right, on Amazon.
Oh, baby. We
got a good selection going on right now. We just
dropped something hot.
Yeah, the mugs.
The
cups.
The rain jackets.
The rain jackets.
They're low-key fire.
I love those rain jackets. You got one?
Okay. I haven't got one yet.
Holy shit.
We'll do some promo for the new apparel here soon, so people can
actually that rain jacket is my favorite rain jacket.
It is. It is freaking nice.
And they got the camo one too, so we're good to go.
I saw it. Just checking it out.
But we got mugs coming. We got cups coming. If they're not already up, we got tank tops. It's tank top season. We got guinea shirts, guinea fowl. If you know guineas, you know what I'm talking about. We got dog shirts. We got the good to go shirt, so you can be good to go. We got chicken shirts, Bobby Joe. Rest in peace.
R.I.P.
Rest in peace. All right, so Canine Revolution apparel on Amazon. Check it out. Also, Jocko Fuel, Origin USA. Right, these products are made in America. Right, they're for America, sourced in America. We like to support America. We like to support ourselves. Jocko Fuel, clean fuel. I recently had a blood test done, and the doctor that was assessing my blood work said, I can tell that you're using some supplements, and I can tell that they're, highly efficient in your body. Your body is using them efficiently.
Nice.
That made me happy.
We know that got you going.
My blood feels like it's American blood.
I got that USA blood in me, that American blood.
But I am on the Jocko Fuel, right?
Yeah.
So I know that the Jocko Fuel is working. And I know it's efficient. Specifically, he mentioned my vitamin D levels were like optimal, perfect.
Nice.
I'm on the Jocko vitamin D3, good to go. Also on a couple other things. But you can go on jockofuel.com. You can check out the supplements available. They got Mulk, which is protein. It's very good. They got the powder version. They got Mulk cookies now. They got the ready-to-drink version. All good to go. They got the Jocko Goes, which is your clean energy.
Yep.
Nothing bad in it for you. No sucralose, no artificial sweeteners, right? Just the right amount of caffeine. Good to go.
Get your juice up.
Right. Origin USA, they got the jeans, Delta 68s. We know you like them. They got the boots. They got belts. They got hoodies. They got a bunch of stuff on there, all made in America, all sourced in America, right?
Yep.
So check that stuff out if you guys want to support the podcast, if you want to support America, if you want to support Jocko Fuel, Origin USA, you can use the code SINGER101 for 10% off of your order on either jockofuel.com or originusa.com. They're both good to go. And then a new program we have coming up, we got the Canine Revolution NFT program coming up. And this is going to be, for those that don't know, basically a digital certificate you'll have, and it's only going to be local to Canine Revolution for now. It might expand later, right? But it's going to basically be a digital certificate. You can put it on your phone, and it will give you perks to local businesses in Summerville and Charleston, South Carolina. Now, with that being said, when we first release it, we're only doing a limited amount because we're trying to gauge the interest in something like this.
Right.
There is a cost to it. It's a very minimal cost from my perspective. A couple cups of Starbucks. But it gives you perks to local businesses in the area. And the first limited edition amounts get more perks than the future NFTs and certificates that are coming out. And the first edition we're calling plank owners. If you don't know what a plank owner is, when you're in the Navy, which I was in the Navy, if you're the first crew on a ship, you're technically called the plank owner because you brought that ship to life.
Right.
You took it out to war.
You're on the planks.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we're calling our first release Canine Revolution plank owners. So I think it's badass.
What kind of businesses are we talking, or is that still in development?
Still in development, but it's going to be dog-related businesses and businesses that are going to help people, like physical therapists, MMA, dog nutrition, right? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Also looking at some of the guests we've had on the podcast, trying to partner with them.
Yeah.
and help bring everybody together. But one thing I want with this program, one of the reasons why we're doing it, is to, just like we want to support America, we want to support local business to us. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of the goals of the program. The other goal is to bring more value to the NFT holder. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, that's coming up. If you are interested in something like that, feel free to reach out and get more details. That will be coming out soon. And then, of course, if you are appreciating the podcast, if you like it, please rate us, please review us, either on your favorite podcasting platform. Leave us a comment on YouTube. You can subscribe on YouTube. You can subscribe on your favorite podcast platform.
Oh, yeah.
Let us know what you like. Let us know what you don't like. Again, we do read the majority of comments, at least the ones that we can see, because sometimes there's like a million comments and we can't find them all. And then we'll do random Q&As like this. And if you're a listener, and you're providing feedback, there is opportunities for you to come on the podcast. We have a listener coming on in later this month, actually. And she's got some questions. She wants to do like a live Q&A.
Here we go.
She's not giving me a read ahead.
Whoa.
So we're going to go
live action.
Straight up, live action.
Wow.
And she's a hardcore listener. She's a supporter.
It's gonna be
so if you're a supporter, if you're a listener, you want to do something like that, again, rate us, review us, contact us, let us know.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys for listening. Thank you for any and all feedback. And until next time.